So you're at the swap meet and you see this RT Challenger all together and you're like, yep, I need one of these. Figure I'd do a little walk around and kind of give you maybe how to buy or at least what to expect when buying. This is something I have seen many times, swap meets or anything like that. It's a ratty car, someone looks like it just pulled out of the barn or out of the field or sitting around forever. You know, it's $3,000-4,000 maybe, and you're like, oh my god, I need this. Because this thing looks cool. If I didn't already have a couple, I wouldn't be selling it. So I think you got to be honest with yourself and realize you got to buy the best car you can. That's always the key. Or your skills have to make up for what your money can't. So I got what we'll call it good at fabricating stuff like that because I couldn't afford the cars I wanted. I could never afford a nice Challenger, which unfortunately a lot of people can't these days. I'm sure around here a running driving Challenger like this is you know, 10-12 grand type thing that still needs a little bit of love, and something you can just hop in and drive away is probably over 20, which is ridiculous. I'd price this at $3 grand, $3,500 in that range type thing, which I think is a fair price, and it's a builder and you can go from it. Now Challengers, or every car has its own little thing, so do your research. The best part is you show up and see this car and you weren't really looking for a Challenger. Everybody has a little computer in their phone. Google it. There'll be a lot of easy things to look for. But this car specifically, so you're gonna walk up here and go, oh, it's got the RT hood and stuff, this and that. Doesn't mean it's an RT. Now, on these cars, the hood's not really connected, but there's a fender tag. If I can get the hood open, this is embarrassing. There'll be a fender tag right here, which is missing. So you could decode that. There's the 2 rivet or holes right there. So you'd be able to decode that, what this thing was, real easy. I did it off the VIN. The VIN says it ain't an RT car. It's a 318 plain Jane. It is what it is. These unibody cars, so Dodges, they typically rust right at the end of the inner fenders where they go to the firewall. This one has been patched before, ugly patched. Keep that in mind. All up in here, the fenders like to rot out, stuff like that. That's where these rust there. They also like to rust in the frame rails and stuff. Now, this car, you show up here, it's had some poor, very poor repairs. What this is a piece of sheet metal someone put underneath or whatever. It's riveted in and then just Bondo to sculpt it into something. So this car does need a lot of work. It's a parts car in a lot of people's eyes. I mean, around these parts, an RT hood's probably $600-700. Now this car can be very, I don't know, plays tricks on your eyes a little bit because it's all together and it looks real cool. But like I said, the front of the fender is hammered. The back of the fender right here is hammered. There's a lot of filler in it. So even though it looks like a good fender, it's really sculpted to be a fender. The doors are actually in good shape, I will say that. Unibody cars, you want to make sure the sills are decent. These ones are. But frame rot is a real thing on these E-bodies, or I guess any sort of Dodge. It's hard to show, but right up in the frame rails here, I can literally put my finger in the frame. I've had a couple of these, they all rot in the same spot. Now, you can fix anything, so be realistic with your skills. This isn't a, you're gonna bring it home and you and your old man are gonna work in the garage a few weekends with some tools you got at Sears. This is gonna need some fairly serious fabrication skills and money and time. You know, I always think it's the stuff that that scares people with, stuff I enjoy, because I, you know, can kind of fumble my way through it. There's no motor, no transmission. Mechanical stuff, I always think if you can get a car that's got a solid body, solid frame, stuff like that, but it needs motor, transmission, brakes, buy that all day long. It's the body work and all that that takes absolutely forever. Now, these e-bikes, let's get bit by a mosquito. They rot out in the back as well, so the rear frame section on this car is completely finished. Like, there's next to nothing left of it up in here. That's frame rail. That's no good. That's where the leaf spring joins to. They typically all rot there. So this car here is very savable, very fixable, but you're into it for 2 rear frame rails and at least patching the one front. The other side's actually good, which is a fairly big job, but doable. The next thing, once you get your head around that, is the car solid. So I mean, the frame, the torque boxes on these things as well. Look at those. These ones aren't actually that bad, surprisingly. It's the rear frame rails that are really ugly. The body stuff, I mean, stuff like a hood, a door, a trunk lid, these can be bought and changed, and really they're no big deal. I mean, it's 4 bolts and it's off. Stuff like that. The inner structure and all those things. The wheel tubs, those are hard to do. Kind of get your head around it. Quarter panels. This one actually, they're very fixable in my mind. But, I mean, it's a full panel you can buy, and they go all the way up into the window, all around. Even though it's a big panel, it's a lot of cutting, it's a really nice repair, and that's something I think you can do, even as an amateur. This car, in the trunk, there was a lot of stuff. So all the trim, like the drip rail trim, the window trim, they'll go around front and back. The door panels are in it, all the little knobs, all those sort of things, they're in this car. Those are the things that can absolutely kill you. You're going to end up needing a parts car, because if you just go on, you can buy all this, don't get me wrong, but I'm sure the window trim is like 200 bucks or 250 bucks. And the rear, same thing, 250 bucks. All the little drip wheel trim. You could have $1,000 in trim before you even know what happened. You know, door handles, $20 here and there. That can add up like crazy, crazy, crazy. This thing was gutted inside. I put it back together. If you guys haven't seen it, I got this car a few weeks ago or whatever, and it's all together now, but it was a basket case inside. When I bought this, it was a bit of a flyer. I didn't know what was all going to be in there. There's doubles and triples of stuff, so it worked out pretty good. But stuff like the dash, all the gauges, the heater box, the wipers, all those mechanisms, if you don't really know what you're looking at, it's kind of hard to justify what they are. And then trying to find them, guaranteed there's some guy that has the wiper mechanism sitting in some shed that he doesn't even want a lot of money for, but he doesn't know you need it, and where are you going to find it? And without it, you're hosed. So you really got a complete car that hasn't been messed with is the best. This car was a complete car, after I've gone through it now, that someone messed with and lost interest with, which is unfortunate. A lot of hot rods. So you just, again, I can't say enough, you have to understand your skill level. Now, this thing being a 318 car, after you run the VIN, so it's non-RT, 318, automatic, plain Jane, it's buckets, console, but I mean, it's a nothing car. It's not worth a pile of money even when it's fixed up and done. I mean, if it was a 440 or an RTE or any of those things, then you can justify it. This, unfortunately, is a parts car that can be brought back to life, but to buy the parts new, just ain't worth it. I mean, you want to come around the front here, like I pieces, all this was in totes and stuff like that, so I put it all back together. But I mean, the valence is just absolutely beat to hell, so I put it on there. It's literally held on with zip ties. So, you know, as you're walking by and as you have the doe eyes on because you're excited, oh, a little wasp there scared you, you're like, oh god, it looks so fancy. This bumper is twisted, so bumper's mangled, valence is mangled, the grill is cracked in a bunch of different spots. It's missing the trim that goes around here. It's missing the hood trim. The trim around the headlights, it's all beat up. So again, what are you making this stuff out of fiberglass and all? I mean, anything is possible, I guess. Are you straighten this out? It's missing the turn signal and park light stuff. Headlight buckets are in it. Those are nice. It's a drum brake car. It does have power steering, so that's nice. But now, if you're, you're gonna do all the brakes and stuff, well, now you're upgrading and whatever it is. The rear end, this one is an 8 3/4, so it's got the right rear end if you want to do something with it. It does have all the side glass. It has the windshield smashed. I believe on these, that stuff is cheap. Like I got a B-body satellite. The rear window on those, they have a weird curve to them. They're expensive. They're $600-700 here for a new window. So don't get the doe eyes. Do a little bit of research. Think it out. Decide. Be honest with yourself. I'm gonna say it 18 more times. Be honest with yourself as to what you can do. You can buy a fender and bolt it on, that's no problem. The structure behind it, like I was pointing out, in this car is rusty. So you're gonna take the fender off, then you're gonna have a few days of repair, so you have something to bolt the fender onto. These Dodges are really, because they're a unibody, they're a little scary. Let's poke inside real quick. Inside, again, this one, the door's gonna fall right off. This will be hilarious because it's literally held on with 2 bolts. If I can open it. Gentle. So, it has the column, which is nice. It has the center console, it has the shifter, all that mechanism there. It actually came with a second column. It's got seats. Seats now, a set of bucket seats here for these is like $500 for ratty bucket seats. I don't know where they are where you guys are, but that's that. The dash is cracked to hell. It does have all the wiring and stuff like that in it. I do have the gauges and the bezel, that's all here as well. Like I said, it has door panels front and back. It has all the headliner bows, even though they've been the headliner's been taken out, the bows are in there, so you can put that all back in. Those are all things that'll just nickel and dime you. All the trim goes on the inside of the A-pillars and up around the side. That's all here as well. It's all in the trunk. Heater boxes in the back seat. Now this thing, you see there's no floors in it. None. And like the front, same thing as well. So it's going to need, the way these Dodges are, they do a front pan. The front pan goes up to the toe board and then just behind the back seat. And then it has a rear pan. It would need a front pan and at least 1 patch in the back. That's a big job. I mean, there's no bones about it. On top of all the structure repair you have to do. I've seen this. Well, I already kind of showed it, but so this is full of parts. You don't know what's in here. I mean, it's mangled up, miscellaneous trim. So I went through it all. I know what's all here. It has all the front and back trim. This is the like inside around the window trim. I mean, who knows what these things are for? But they're in there. You know, the glove box door was off it. So like this little piece here attaches the glove box door. So someone took it apart, they took it off the car and off the glove box door. Well, if you don't have that, it's a pain. I mean, you can make anything work, I realize that, but where's that? Hood hinges are in here, all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, it's there. It's a complete car. Someone can buy it. The last thing, and this is where I'm going to leave it, this car had a good title, so the VIN number was legitimate. Where we are, and I know it's different everywhere, so some people always, you know, I'm always like, oh, it has a title, and it's a big deal. I know some places, like a bill of sale is all you need. Here we need a title as well as a bill of sale. So if the car doesn't have a title, if it doesn't have a VIN number or something like that, it's essentially a paperweight, which drives me crazy, because how many of these cars have sat around for 30 years or 40 years or whatever it is before computers were a thing, before they started giving titles out or whatever, or got lost, a guy died. Pick your excuses not have a title, and the car's useless. This is a rough car with a good title. If you had a race car, this would be the perfect car to make a race car back into a street car, or piles and piles of fabrication skills, or at least the want to figure it out. I mean, I bought one of this style car, 68 7 Firebird, when I was probably, I was living at home, so 18, something like that, 17, and it was just as rough, and you know, I can figure it out, never happened. Car getting parted out and sold, just because you had all these big dreams and you start cutting it apart and taking it apart and you just go, whoa, I don't have the skills and I can't afford it, and next thing you know, it goes to someone else, and that it's pretty defeating. So there you go. This is a car, again, take a step back at it, it looks cool. It looks like you could go on a, you know, put a motor in it and drive it around the block, but it's pretty far from what it was. Just like I said, when we picked it up, it had no front clip on it, no nothing. The doors were hanging off of it even worse than they were. It was a really rough car, full of junk, no seats, no nothing. This is a day's worth of nuts and bolts and zip ties. You can really deceive what a car can look like. And what you can, I mean, let's be honest, swindle somebody into buying. And I think if you're at the swap meet or you're looking on Craigslist or Facebook or whatever, this is how I would sell it. I wouldn't sell it with a bunch of miscellaneous pieces not knowing it is. You want to sell the dream, right? So I just do that little walk around, what to look for when you're buying a hot rod. If you don't have the skills, don't have a welder, don't have a little bit of time and all that, you could have $10,000 in this thing before you know what happened. And it's a base model 72 Challenger. So if you pay 3, you put 10 into it because you've got quarters and doors and fenders and motor, transmission, all that stuff. At a certain point, like I said, you're at that $10,000, $15,000 mark. You could probably buy one that's rough but running and driving already. If you don't want to learn the skills, that might be the way to go. But there you go. 72 Challenger, fake RT. Everybody should have one. You maybe need one.